Mortal Kombat! Well, hello there, and welcome to day 127 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And, of course, today, finally, after some delays and a fair amount of build-up, considering my trailer reaction video is currently the most viewed video on my channel, I can finally talk about the 2021 Mortal Kombat film. It's a tricky one, I suppose, to sort of quantify something which is so simple, I suppose. Not basic, but simple. Doing a Mortal Kombat film should be a fairly straightforward feat in terms of, if you look at the original 1995 Mortal Kombat, it's a very straightforward tournament movie, tournament martial arts movie with just a little bit more special effects and sort of pushing boundaries in terms of going, okay, can we incorporate traditional martial arts styles with CG and animatronics? And for what it's worth, in the original Mortal Kombat, I've always said that was a success. As I said in my reaction video, and as I said in my Mortal Kombat Annihilation video, I really quite like Paul W.S. Anderson's Mortal Kombat. Particularly, the certain fight scenes, Johnny Cage versus Scorpion, Johnny Cage versus Goro, and Liu Kang versus Shang Tsung. And that Liu Kang Shang Tsung fight is genuinely amazing. And so you think, okay, Mortal Kombat is a perfect property because it has all this extensive, mad lore that goes on for across something like what we are, Mortal Kombat 11. So 11 games of including, a reboot and a sort of reboot, a revitalization that spans decades of storytelling. And this Mortal Kombat film, I mean, it's interesting because obviously Mortal Kombat has been since Annihilation, and of course I've talked about that extensively in its own video. The property was obviously significantly diminished by its relationship with that film, and frankly, the games went through a long period of declining quality until the revitalization, and then, which was about 8-ish years ago. And then since then, and even before, there have been constant conversations about bringing back Mortal Kombat in some form. We've had several TV series now, including, what was it called? There was a Conquest, a Mortal Kombat Conquest, which was like a slightly cheesy 90s style show, and then you had Mortal Kombat Legacy, which was the web series where it was like, the original pitch was, what if Mortal Kombat but in the real world? And then when it started to develop popularity, they dropped that because it was good for like the one short video, the short film that they did. But once it became a web series, it became quite clear they couldn't do the what if it was real, because like I say, Mortal Kombat, it is at its core slightly campy, slightly silly, serious martial arts, but also mixed in with over the top, ridiculous fantasy, and with its sort of campiness interspersed with it. And the most important thing is the visceralness of the violence. The fact that Mortal Kombat, of course, the original games were known for their violence, and they caused all kinds of controversy in their release, and in terms of conservative censorship and what should and shouldn't be allowed, and it redefined games. And so there you have, those are the elements that need to be in a Mortal Kombat. And we get to this, and I can't pretend I wasn't massively excited for this. I'm ramping up to see this amazing, it doesn't even have to be amazing, a Mortal Kombat film, a return of such a fun and interesting property. And then they released a 7-minute video which shows the intro, and that is genuinely amazing. Genuinely amazing, where it shows 17th century Hitari. Let me see if I get his name right. Hitari Hanshi? Scorpion, or Proto Scorpion. As him and his family are attacked by Bihan, Sub-Zero, who then murders his family, and then eventually him. But the point is that you get this incredible series of quite well choreographed, incredibly violent, erring back to the Japanese warrior films of the 20th century, where there's just visceral blood and gore, and it's very shocking. And that was exciting. That was exciting as we got to the release. And then, of course, we've had all this bother in the UK about it not being released at the same time as it was in most of the rest of the world. Of course, then having to dodge and duck spoilers, and then it sort of gets dropped. Oh, it's being released in the UK. I think I found out about it like 3-4 days before, and it's like, okay, so this is now the time. It's not going to cinemas. It is going to be released to Amazon Prime. Okay. And then we start watching it, and of course that opening sequence is genuinely incredible. And then you jump to the present day, and we get introduced to this Cole Young character, who in the trailer reaction video, put my stamp down as saying that's Johnny Cage. It has to be. Like, that's because who else could it be? They wouldn't just make an original character up and just throw him into the film. They made an original character up and threw him into the film, and that's fine. Actually, Cole Young is fine. I mean, he does tie into the lore. I mean, there's a whole thing about him being tied into the legacy of Hitari Hanshi Scorpion, and that does feed well in, and he isn't a bad intro character, and it takes the weight off of having to take a character who people already know and use them as an intro into the film. And so, like I say, he's fine. He's an MMA fighter, past his prime. He's got a family, and he's sort of a bit lost as a person. But then we start to return to the more known Mortal Kombat elements, and the first thing is, of course, Bihan is sent by Outworld to kill Cole, and we have Jax arrive, and Jax is sort of he picks up Cole and explains everything that's going on, and he is now our guide into the world of Mortal Kombat. And the first major issue, I suppose, is the fact that whereas in the original, the tournament was happening, the characters were not tricked, but recruited in slightly dubious circumstances. And then once they arrive in Mortal Kombat, they realise what's going on, and they, of course, are stuck and they have to participate. In this, they establish that Sub-Zero's coming after Cole. Jax explains vaguely some of the things that goes on, and then we have Sonya Blade later who goes into more detail. And a lot of the characters, Cole, his wife and his daughter, they seem to take it on the chin fairly well that magic exists. There are evil demon sorcerers with ice powers, and it's remarkable how they can just sort of accept it and not really sort of question their reality. So you can kind of already go, okay, the tone has changed from that opening sequence. The opening sequence that took itself incredibly seriously. It's not going to be that film. And so then we have a cool fight between Jax and Sub-Zero, and you think, okay, well, the one thing I will credit it with is when it wants to be violent, it gets visceral. Like I said, that opening sequence, but then it continues when it wants to. So, and I'm happy to spoil this, I suppose, because it's in the trailer, and of course, knowing the character of Jax, you know his arms are metal. he gets his arms ripped off by Sub-Zero quite brutally, or frozen and then shattered off, and it's cool. It's very cool and it's very visceral and it's exactly what you want in a Mortal Kombat. So then, of course, we introduce Sonya Blade and then we introduce Kano. And this is a weird thing to say. Kano's the best character in the film. He has the best lines. You get a sense of a quite complex character. I mean, again, knowing the games, if you've seen the original film, and he definitely does not err towards the light. And this film plays with that a little bit, but, this is Kano we're talking about. And it's established that he's like a mercenary, and he murdered the person who was the chosen one to take part in the Mortal Kombat tournament, and therefore he gets given the tattoo mark that means he will now take part. But his character's just fun and funny, and he calls out the ridiculousness of the world around him. I mean, we do get a moment with Cole, where Cole, when he's talking to Sonya Blade and points out certain things that are just silly, like the fact that Sonya Blade goes on this great long speech about the history of Mortal Kombat, what it is, the fact that she and Jax have been searching for the answers to it, and it says, and our answers come all round to Mortal Kombat. And Cole immediately says, "Oh, so you made that name up, right? I mean, you even misspelled it." And that's quite a funny pointing out. That's very, it's a little meta, but it's quite funny. But that's all he does. That's his one self-aware joke of the film. And the rest of it is Kano. And Kano is effing and blinding. He's calling everyone out in a slightly ridiculous way. And in my heart, I wanted Kano to be a redeemable asshole. That's not quite how it pans out, but it's what I wanted because he was such fun to watch. He possibly started to wear out a little bit after a while when everything he said is constantly attention-seeking, constantly aggressive, putting people down, or But again, like I say, it's personality, and unfortunately, this is the big issue, which is a lot of the other characters don't really have personalities per se. They have a trait of some kind, but they don't really have any depth to them or any personality. Cole, maybe. Sonya Blade, well, she has an arc. Well, an arc is putting it lightly. A goal. Jax, again, has an arc of sorts. We of course get introduced to Liu Kang and Kung Lao, and you go, okay, and they're just there, and you're watching it going, okay, I didn't choose to watch a Mortal Kombat film for the rich, complex character work that the actors would have put in, but it did feel a little thin. And then, of course, we get introduced to Raiden. And Raiden's fine. He's much more your traditional Raiden that you'd get in the game, or erring back to the game, than the ones we got with Christopher Lambert or James Remar. But I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that Raiden isn't what you anticipate. There's something, he be something something else. He will be something slightly unexpected. I was kind of hoping another actor might take it, like Jaimin Hansu. I kind of thought, Jaimin Hansu as Raiden would be really cool, of course, from Shazam and things like the Constantine film from the early noughties. He is the kind of actor who I go, wouldn't it be interesting to have him be Raiden? Because people wouldn't anticipate it, and he would add something different. But like I said, you get a very traditional Raiden. And then, of course, you get the villains with, like, Shang Tsung, and, of course, like I said, Sub-Zero, and you get Melina, and Kabal, and Goro, and they're all just there. And it's fine, yeah, standard villains, standard heroes, and you get to the point where things are starting to line up in preparation for the Mortal Kombat film. But you realise at a certain point that, for one, it's very clear that the Mortal Kombat aspect is they're preparing for the Mortal Kombat aspect, but you're like, oh, you're not going to end with Mortal Kombat about to begin, because that would be somewhat disappointing, and they don't quite do that, but they don't not do that as well. It's not quite like I say the 95 film, which is just you're thrown into Mortal Kombat. That is what's happening. This is much more a setup film, and yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Like I said, it's not disappointing. The action is really good. Once you get to the actual fight scenes, some of them are pretty good. They're okay. It's a little CG for me. It's a little standard Western choreography with editing styles that that aren't particularly done in a challenging way. It's very basic, and yeah, this time basic. It's just very like yep, I've seen this kind of fight, Whereas what I was hoping for was more of the, like I said, to his credit, say what you will about Paul W.S. Anderson, say what you will about his Mortal Kombat, Resident Evil sequels, and the reputation he developed later in his career, but frankly, he is someone who when he wants to make something, he absolutely doubles down on it. And when he wanted to make a Mortal Kombat film, he made a Mortal Kombat film. Yes, it wasn't violent in the way that it should have been, but it actually felt like a referring back to martial arts films, like Bruce Lee style martial arts films. Whereas this lacks that. It doesn't feel like martial arts. It feels like standard action film with one or two moments of interesting choreography. Like I said, that fight between Liu Kang and Shang Tsung in the original, even just the first bit of it, is so good. It's proper, choreographed, well shot. It actually feels like a really, intense fight scene. Whereas there's nothing like that here. There are some good, like I said, some good fights-ish, but none of them are choreographed in the same way. They're more interested in making references to the games, which of course, that's no problem with that. And it would be disappointing if we didn't get references to some of the move sets from the game. And like I said, where it fails in terms of like making the combat particularly interesting, it succeeds in terms of the gore, because it really does want to give you that sense of fatality that Mortal Kombat was infamous for. So you do have that. And yeah, the second half is definitely not as interesting as the first, let's say. When I've realised what kind of film I'm watching, I that's the point in which I was like, okay, this is going in a very conventional route. It doesn't really do anything subversive with the characters. It's very, this character's going to do this is going to do that, this is going to lead to this. And unfortunately, once that sort of kicks in, the stakes massively drop, because there was a point early on when you think, oh, anything could happen in this. Anyone is under threat. Anything, this is a Mortal Kombat film where you might lose characters left, right, and centre. The Game of Thrones of Mortal Kombat. But like I said, it goes more conventional in the second half, and you think, okay, I can see what they're going for here, and it's not bad, but it's not innovative. And yeah, you get to the end, and it ends very abruptly, and it ends in a way that you go, okay, and it does start to tease the tiniest hints of things in the future where you go, well, if they do make a sequel, this could be interesting to see all this. But if they didn't, I wouldn't be massively disappointed. I wouldn't have been like, oh man, they were setting up for some exciting prospects in the future. Now, I already know that this has done really well. The reaction's been great to it, and despite the fact that we're still in the streaming sense of box office. So money, the money that could have been made is nowhere near the same as the theatrical box office. But it's done pretty well, seemingly, and consequently, they are already gearing up to expand it, whether it's in one or several sequels or spin-offs. So, and that I'm not going to complain about, because if they can start to expand this a little bit, that would be good. And we might, even the settings aren't particularly well represented. You get shots of, it mostly takes place in modern day, globe trotting, I suppose, and so we get bits and bobs of interesting things, but mostly set inside a training temple that's very Lara Croft standard. We get hints to things like Outworld and the Nether Realm, but we don't spend a great deal of time there, and they're not particularly interesting. Again, they're there's a lot of quarry work. Whereas I hope in sequels they start to actually make these places quite distinct and interesting, that we actually get that sense of oh wow, this Outworld has a personality, and oh, Edenia has a personality, and the Netherrealm, and they're not just generic villainous or other settings. And then same with the characters. I hope they feel the ability to take more risks with characters. I mean, the games, after a certain time, did start to take some wild risks with characters that sometimes did well for a period, did and didn't work, and then sort of corrected itself, like I said, once this reboot came in. But again, they never had an issue with taking risks with what they wanted to do with characters, whereas this played it safe. Frankly, it did ultimately, when it boils down to it, play it very safe. And I want something with a little bit more teeth, more Melina teeth going on, because I could watch one like this and go, okay, this is the first one. But if I was to watch more Mortal Kombat films and they're very much this kind of fare, I wouldn't mind Mortal Kombat going back to resting. But yeah, it's fine. It's directed by a director called Simon McNinner. What was his name? McCoy. Simon McCoy, who this is his first feature film directing debut, and for a first film, pretty good. I kind of wish it was in more experienced hands, only because I like I said, I wanted a director who really could take the helm and take some interesting risks. But if this is his first feature, hey, that's pretty good considering. I do hope if he continues as the director on this, that he does start to get his feet on the ground and then go, okay, let's really do some radical things with the franchise. I can't say I'm not disappointed. I can't say it's not, after all this build up and the delayed reaction, I can't say I'm overly pleased with what I saw. It's fine, but it's nowhere near as exciting as it could have been, and as the goodwill was willing it to be. So I can't say I'm not a little sore. So, bit of a flat ending, I suppose, but like I said, a flat ending for a film that had a fairly flat ending, I suppose. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Please hit that little bell to get notifications of when new videos go up, and comment and share the videos because that helps me in the algorithm. I've got a huge back catalogue of films, including the reaction video for the Mortal Kombat trailer that, as I said, is to date still head and shoulders the most successful video on my channel. Don't know how I feel about that now, but hey, if we can get this video to surpass that, I wouldn't be disappointed. But yeah, Thank you. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting about movies, news, and TV news, and of course links to the videos as they go up. Thank you for joining me. Take care.